Hey there, Pony fan, it's comic review time. Today I'm looking at issues number 11 and 12. This double feature tells the story of how Shining Armor and Princess Cadance first met.
Oh boy, just what I always wanted to hear.
You know, sarcasm's really more my thing.
The story begins in a random Canterlot cafe, where the main six, Shining Armor and Cadance, are chatting, when the question of how the Crystal Empire's #1 power couple first met comes up. Apparently it all started back at Canterlot High, where Cadance, being, you know, a princess, was at the top of the social hierarchy, whereas Shining Armor was...
Nerd! Ha! I love that guy.
And he's no ordinary nerd, he's a tabletop gaming nerd. But with a little help from his party and the old 20-sided dice, our intrepid paladin,
because what else would he be,
will rescue the fair princess from an evening of forced merriment with that villain Pony Biff. But the Pink Pony Princess has a plan of her own, hatched with future bestie Twy, to ditch Major Tool and get with her knight in Shining Armor. Now, I don't want to spoil anything.
Private, how could you possibly spoil this thing? We know how the frickin' story ends.
I was gonna say love conquers all.
No, my BFG 9000 conquers all.
Well said.
But you do raise a valid point, Sergeant. Sweet as the story is, it lacks any sense of urgency, and that's not just because we already know how the story ends. It's because of the way it's presented, in a casual setting being told by the participants, in the past tense. The one fairly clever thing about this setup is how in Volume 11, we see the story from Shining Armor's perspective, and then in Volume 12, from Cadance's POV. But the interesting setup is not well executed on. Only a handful of scenes actually overlap between the two issues, and there's no real visual difference between the two narrators. It might have been a good idea to change up the art style, or at least have events play out in slightly different ways. One thing that this issue does try to do is elaborate on Shining Armor as a character. His personality, his interests, and for the life of me, I find the choice a bit odd. In the show proper, we don't get a lot on Shiny, but we get little glimpses here and there. First off, his job. He's not just in the Royal Guard, he's a captain of the Royal Guard. That implies a lot of discipline and patriotism. Then there's that one scene with his crest, in Canterlot Wedding.
This was my favorite uncle's.
He's a traditional guy with a lot of respect for family, and he's the one training the Crystal Empire team for the Equestria Games. This implies a fairly strong interest in athletics. I can think of plenty of high school stock types that would fit Shining Armor better than... Nerd! But having said that, his choice of character class was absolutely inspired. He couldn't not be the Paladin. Now for Cadance, who I think works a lot better. Her scenes with Twilight are just darling, and she comes off exactly like she does in the show. Very down to earth despite her high status. And she's able to see through Buck immediately. The supporting cast is fun, like Shiny Whiny's friends and Cadance's gal pals. They're all entertaining and endearing, and Buck is a pretty good villain, and in true Friendship is Magic fashion, he's not really evil so much as a big jerk. Where you're going to get your money's worth on this two-parter is with the comedy and references. The dialogue is witty and the situation's entertaining. There are lots of fun pop culture references, including one to the greatest band ever, the Wild Stallions.
I see your Wild Stallions and raise you Death Clock.
There are also guest appearances from various background ponies, the best being the source of Vinyl Scratch's Cutie Mark. There's also a confusing appearance from Chira Lee, who's from Ponyville, not Canterlot, and she's the same age as the main six. As you can see here, she's in the same class as Rarity. Oh, and the art of Andy Price is fantastic. Now it's time to break down the good and the bad in My Little Pony issues 11 and 12. On the good side, the signature sense of humor, the beautiful art, and fun characters make this slice of life from the Crystal Empire's most famous couple a fun read. On the other hand, some odd character turns and continuity errors might irk you if that kind of thing irks you. And the failure to illustrate how a story told by two different ponies is, different, plus the lack of engagement, make this story just slightly above average. So I give My Little Pony issues 11 and 12 a 3.5 out of 5. If you're interested in more reviews of anime, movies, TV shows, comic books, or video games, find my channel on YouTube at StupidPrivate913. Also, look for me on Facebook if you're interested in video updates and more. Thanks for watching.
Hey kids, today's show is brought to you by the letter 4 and the number potato! I'm a stupid private.